paladins and hammers made for each other, like peanut butter and jelly. Since the beginning, we have always loved hammers. Love to throw hammers, spin hammers, and smash shit with hammers. And just when you thought we had reached peak hammering, the Templar Hero talent show up to tell you, we're just getting started. So the Templar Hero talents are only available to the Protection and the Retribution specs. And right up at the top, the Keystone ability, or the ability that introduces a new core mechanic, is Light's Guidance. And what happens here is that you get a replacer ability. So every time you use either Eye of Tyr for protection or Wake of Ashes for retribution, those abilities are then replaced with this new Hammer of Light ability. So you pop one of these cooldowns, and then in their place comes in Hammer of Light. Costs 5 holy power. What does it do? It does a ton of damage to the initial target and 4 nearby enemies. On top of that, it begins to call down these Emmpyrean hammers from the sky to strike up to 3 nearby enemies. So you use one of these cooldowns, depending which spec you're in, and then for 12 seconds, that ability becomes Hammer of Light. So you've got 12 seconds to stack up 5 holy power to send this bad boy out after using one of these abilities. And then it does AoE damage on top of it begins to call hammers down from the sky. And after you've cast that Hammer of Light within that 12-second window and all this stuff happens, you also gain this Shake the Heavens passive where every 2 seconds for 8 seconds, you're going to bring down another Emmpyrean Hammer on a nearby target. So you blow them all up with this, you call these 3 down, and then for the next 8 seconds, every 2 seconds, here comes another hammer. Higher calling, whenever you use these abilities, depending on which spec you're in, you extend this Shake the Heavens buff by 1 second. So you can keep those hammers raining down a little longer. Hammerfall, another way to get more hammers falling down. When you use your Shield of the Righteous or Word of Glory and Protection, or Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm and Retribution, you're just going to call down an Emmpyrean Hammer every time you use those abilities. And if you happen to have this Shake the Heavens buff up after having recently used Hammer of Light, then you're going to call down an additional Emmpyrean Hammer. So it's 2 hammers for the price of 1 if you have that Shake the Heavens buff active, which again you can extend up here. And the Capstone ability, Light's Deliverance, every time you call down an Emmpyrean Hammer, you gain a stack. And once you get to 50 stacks, you can cast Hammer of Light, and then you get another Hammer of Light for free. So from the Keystone ability, you use your Eye of Tyr, Wake of Ashes. Then you've got 12 seconds to build up 5 holy power and drop this Hammer of Light, which will replace these abilities. You drop this Hammer of Light, it does damage to your target and to 4 nearby enemies and calls down 3 hammers. On top of that, you've now activated this Shake the Heavens passive where you're calling down Emmpyrean hammers for 8 seconds, every 2 seconds. You can extend that passive by using these abilities, and then whenever you use these abilities, you call down an Emmpyrean Hammer. And if you have that Shake the Heavens buff up, you call down an extra one. And then every time you call down those hammers that we just talked about, you build stacks. You get to 50 stacks, you cast a Hammer of Light, you get to cast another one for free. I imagine the goal here will be to cast the first one, get this Shake the Heavens buff, let it run out, or try to extend it as long as you can, and when it's about to drop off, then you drop the next one. And that way you could extend those hammers dropping for as long as possible. What I tell you, it's raining hammers. Hallelujah. It's raining hammers. Up here in the upper left of the tree, we have our first choice node. On top, Templar's Watch is a 30% buff to these abilities. So Eye of Tyr, Hammer of Light, Wake of Ashes, Hammer of Light, 30% increased damage, single target. Starts to reduce the more targets you add in. For Whom the Bell Tolls down here, now we're giving single target buff to Divine Toll. 100% increase on your next 3 judgments when you hit only one enemy. 20% reduction for each target struck. So single target increase on these AoE abilities. Sacrosanct Crusade, when you cast Eye of Tyr or Wake of Ashes, you gain Shield of Vengeance at 10% effectiveness. And Shield of Vengeance is just that holy barrier you can put up. It absorbs damage, and then when it absorbs the max amount of damage it can take, it'll blow up. There you go. And it does all that damage it absorbed. It sends it back out as an AoE damage to all the enemies around you. And at the bottom of the left side of the tree, another choice node. On top, Endless Wrath, where calling down Emmpyrean Hammers, and we talked about calling down a lot of them here in the middle, 10% chance to reset the cooldown of Hammer of Wrath and let you throw it at anyone, even if their health's above 20%. So every time these hammers drop, you got a chance to get a free Hammer of Wrath. Sanctification, casting Judgment, increases the damage of Emmpyrean Hammer on the target by 10% for 10 seconds. So you're raining those hammers down, you're throwing these Judgment, buffing them up, and this can overlap. So I don't know how high you can stack this, but that's kind of interesting. Then over here on the right, we start with a passive called Emmpyrean Hammer with 2 M's. And it's going to give you a benefit to these Emmpyrean Hammers critting. So when these hammers drop from the sky and hit a target, if they crit, 60% of that damage is going into another enemy. And you get a reduction in the damage they deal to you for 8 seconds. 5%. Not a lot, but if these are constantly dropping and you're maintaining that, well, it's something. Then we come down to our choice node on the right side. Bonds of Fellowship. This is a great one because it heavily incentivizes using your Blessing of Sacrifice, which I always see a ton of, especially newer pallies or just bad pallies. They don't use that ability nearly enough. And here you're getting incentivized to use it. You take less damage from using it, which is nice and safer in those Mythic Plus and Arena and those competitive modes where that damage is a little more scary. And then each time that person that you put it on takes damage, you gain movement speed up to 40%. So if they're getting blasted, you can cruise around and make things happen. This is outstanding. It's a great passive to a great ability, and it incentivizes its use. Perfect. Just perfect. The next one's called Unrelenting Charger, because Pony's sick of you talking shit about him. What does he do? He carries you around and looks awesome, makes your T-Mog shine, and you still don't give him that respect. But here comes Unrelenting Charger, and guess what? Pony's getting nitrous. Lasts 2 seconds longer, and for the first 3 seconds, 30% movement speed increase. You don't love him like you should, but you're going to learn to love him. This 30% is going to be sweet. This is going to be amazing when I'm playing Prod and Warsong Gulch to carry the flag. Everybody's jumping on you, slowing you down. You toss freedom on yourself, and then you hit Pony, get that nitrous boost. He's too fast and too furious, and you're getting that flag cap, and that's what it's going to be. Also, just going to be hugely useful for getting around in dungeons, pulling packs. I mean, this has a ton of use just flying around doing dailies. 30% boost every few seconds. I mean, Pony has 20-something second cooldown. You got 2 charges. You can fly around with this ability. It's just going to be a lot of fun. Awesome, awesome, awesome ability. Very excited about this one. Good for you, Pony. I love you. Undisputed Ruling, a buff to Hammer of Light here. So when you drop that big Hammer of Light, it's going to apply that Judgment debuff to all the targets it hits, and it's going to give you a haste increase. You'll remember that whatever you hit with your Judgment gets the Judgment debuff, where they take 20% increased damage from your next Holy Power ability. So now when you call in this big Hammer of Light and you blow everything up in front of you, they're also going to get that Judgment debuff where they take 20% more damage on the next ability you send out, which is interesting considering if you get a free one down here, you could send one out, apply this Judgment, and this one could get souped up 20%. Wow. On top of some wings. Sounds like we're going to be having a really good time. And here's a nice addition too, and this was something I was initially worried about, but where, as a Retribution Paladin, it's no problem building 5 Holy Power. You can do it in a few clicks. But as a Protection Paladin, sometimes building all the way up to 5 quickly seems like it could be a problem, especially if you're in the middle of tanking stuff or there's a boss mechanic that's about to happen and you need to get that Shield of the Righteous up. I don't know. You could just see scenarios where getting 5 Holy Power in that 12-second window could be a problem. Well, here, when you activate that Eye of Tyr cooldown, 3 Holy Powers given to you. So you just got to build 2 more to get that 5 Holy Power to get Light's Guidance off. So that'll really smooth out the flow of the spec and using that Hammer of Light effectively. This sounds like a ton of damage and it sounds a lot of fun. I really, really like the idea of the replacer talents. Can I say that? I think that's a cool way to do it. I think that's brilliant. And I'm glad to see them doing this kind of stuff. Boy, this could really happen to a lot of different talents. And yeah, I think this is really impressive. The first takeaway I'm going to say is that it's quite obvious that we are going to commit to the burn it down meta. In other words, we like people grabbing up a bunch of shit and AoEing it down. When you look across all the other hero talents, everybody's got crazy AoE stuff going off. The AoE is going to be incredible. Remember that you can have this on a protection palette. I mean, all this AoE is going to be available to a tank. On top of, you can think of a rep paladin sending out divine storms, and there's just going to be shit going off everywhere. So it definitely seems like we are committed to the AoE meta and not only maintaining it, but stimulating it up a little bit here. So this is a lot of shit going off on just one paladin. There's usually not a shortage of paladins. And then when you look at the other classes and their stuff going off, boy, that's just a lot of stuff going off. And at some point, if you watch a raid or a boss get killed, you realize that there's sometimes so much shit going off that it's really hard to enjoy your stuff. And I'm thinking maybe we're getting to a point where it's just a little overkill. It's not that this stuff isn't cool. And again, we'll have to see. We don't see the animations and stuff. But already when you do a boss fight, I mean, if you just watch a boss fight, even like a world boss, and just look at the amount of stuff going off and proccing and pets getting summoned and totems and boomkin beams, and just there is stuff everywhere. It's a little overwhelming, and I don't think you get to really appreciate the animation sometimes because honestly, sometimes you're just trying to see the mechanics between all the beams and shit going everywhere. This all looks incredible, and so do a lot of the other hero talents with Warlock summon on all these demons and stuff. I mean, but there is just gonna be shit going off everywhere, and there is the concept of too much of a good thing. So it's hard to say without being able to see it, and there's no sense being overly critical without even being able to see the stuff, but we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But paladins and hammers, what a great combination. And this Templar Hero talent seemed to be playing right into that. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be raining hammers. So in closing, we'll just say, hammer, hammer, more hammer. Oklahoma out.